Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
There is no greater way to end the season than by setting cars loose on one of the most storied racetracks of them all. The Circuit de la Sarthe is an 8.46-mile blast through purpose-built road course and normally bustling city streets that has become synonymous with speed and technical challenge. And today, the iRacing Israel League sets their sights on its 33 turns in a 40-minute season finale that is sure to delight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the iRacing Israel League finale live here on Apex Racing TV. My name is DJ Clark, joined in the commentary booth by Dane Baird, with our director and producer, Luis Araya, working behind the scenes. And Dane, well, this circuit really needs no introduction, especially considering we're letting GT3 machinery loose on it here today.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of a preview actually here as to what we're going to be seeing from next year, 2024 and onwards at this absolutely beautiful circuit. It is probably my second all-time favorite circuit, possibly even takes the top spot, sort of around about the same level as the Nürburgring Nordschleife for me. I had the fantastic opportunity to drive around half of the circuit last year. It is an experience I'll probably never forget. Yeah, this track is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it is absolutely fantastic. And as we watch Mark Zubarev working his way around right now, we are in the midst of the 8-minute qualifying session. Drivers going to have to hurry their way out on track to be able to get a lap time down here. But we've got a relatively small field here today, about 13 or so cars. But I've got to think that you're going to want to try to keep up as much as possible with everyone because the draft is going to be in huge supply here today.
Yeah, and it allows the drivers to catch back up even if they do make a small mistake, especially if it is inside that first sector. If you can keep hold of the car, you can catch back up to the drivers ahead. And for that reason, this often ends up being very similar to pack racing. You get a massive group of cars all making moves down the Mulsanne straight, and then just trying to hold on through the end of the lap and the beginning of the next one, because it is a very tricky place to drive around. These Porsche curves, some of the best S's on any racetrack in the world, in my opinion. Absolutely love them, but they are not easy.
No, they are not, and let me tell you, I can count on one hand the number of times that I have been able to get them right on the simulator, but there is a reason why I'm up in the commentary booth and not down on the track, like Nadav Yaron right now, who pilots the number 22 Audi down through the Ford chicanes here, bringing that car across the line to, I believe, start his flying lap, as Yaron comes across the start-finish line right there. Actually, that's going to be his flying lap in the books. That's a 3:56. 3:57.9. Your early mark here to beat. Let's see if Tassoni's going to be able to beat on that. No, a 3:58.16. Looking for some pretty sizable margins here around this 8-mile circuit. It is a very long way around, plenty of places to make or lose a little bit of time, so I would not be surprised if we see some bigger gaps like that up at the front of the field.
Yeah, but you've got to take everything in perspective. You know, if you're looking at a 2-minute lap time, you see drivers 6/10 off the pace. That's not too bad, and you've essentially got double the lap time around here, so you'll get double the gaps as well. So yeah, don't be surprised to see those fairly large gaps up at the field. However, once we get going, those gaps are going to get smaller because, as you said, we've got those long straights. The drafting is going to be huge, and so hopefully we'll get some really close racing.
Yeah, we should get some really close racing, and one driver who's going to be hoping to get in on that close racing is Yuta Ben-Yosef right here in the BMW, the number 10, as he brings the car down through the Ford chicanes right now, taking a big clobber of those curbs. That is the fastest way to get through that corner, out onto the rumble strips there around the outside. Ben-Yosef's going to come across the line. That'll put him up in P5 right now with a time of 4:01.52. Looks like he's going to continue on here, although probably not going to be able to get that second lap done. He resides in Sure, currently the driver in 7th place. Now, he may just be able to eke in one more lap here if he's careful, but even then, that's going to be a pretty tall order as these lap times, as we've said, in the 4-minute mark. So a very, very long lap around here. I think more than anything, Sure is just going out to try to get a little bit of practice here, try to build that rhythm a little bit more around the circuit.
Yeah, because practice is something that you have limited amounts of. Obviously, if the track is twice as long, you'll do half the number of laps given the same amount of time for your practice. So if you only get a couple of hours, you're getting half the number of laps you normally get. You don't get as many opportunities to practice the corners, especially nearer towards the end of the track. You think of Porsche curves, Ford chicanes at the end as well. You're not reaching those nearly as often as you're reaching the first corners, because if you make a mistake on your lap and reset, you got to go around again. So most drivers get the first sector of this track pretty down. Problem is, once you get towards the end of it, we haven't had as much practice.
Yeah, certainly haven't, as that is one of the drawbacks here around running such a long circuit. Looks like Rantasoni also going to be one of those drivers trying to build up a little bit more of that rhythm as the clock ticks on here. Only about a minute left to go, so this is definitely a run that is just for practice as we watch the number 20 coming down into Indianapolis, and that's going to be an area on the track that we have to watch out for. A potential overtaking opportunity down into the left-hander, but a very difficult way to do it is you've got to fly through that right-hand kink right before the corner. We've seen drivers go too wide around there, but in these GT3s with a little bit of reduced downforce, it's going to be a lot harder to pull off. Nevertheless, Tassoni continues to bring the car down into the Porsche curves right now. Excuse me. Ooh, a little bit of a wide run there on the end. Yossi Gabe going to pull it off to the side, and that means it is the end of the session as the checkered flag is in the air. Let's go ahead then and run you through our qualifying order. It's going to be Nadav Yaron lining up in pole position, followed by Arnon Levi, then Rantasoni and Yossi Gabe in row 2. Yuta Ben-Yosef will be in P5 with Mark Zubarev to his outside. Then it's Aiden Scher and Tal Stern. Benny Sorik lines up P9. Offer Mazus will be P10. And drawer last will be Tail End Charlie here today. An 11-car grid. Everybody hoping to be able to go. And as we have talked about here, as we've talked about, a 40-minute race around this circuit. That is going to be a little bit of a change for these drivers. They're going to have to focus a little bit more in the long term and certainly be thinking about tire preservation in addition to everything else they've got to worry about around this circuit.
Yeah, it definitely is. And if you're wondering whereabouts we are right now, we're just before the Porsche curves. Bit of an odd starting procedure here at Le Mans because obviously it's such a long track. No one wants to sit on a formation lap for 8-10 minutes, right? So we start off nearer towards the end of the lap. They go through the Porsche curves, and then they'll go and get green. The trouble being, sometimes if you're near the back of the field, obviously we have a small field here, but I'm not sure it's going to be too much of a problem. But getting through the Ford chicanes at the end of this lap, side by side cleanly, is near on impossible. So we'll have to wait and see how they handle it. They only have to do it once, Not twice like usual in this series, but it will be interesting to see. Maybe they go single file and regroup up again before the start-finish line, but it could be an interesting start, let's say that.
Yeah, it could be very interesting, and I think a lot of that's going to be dictated here by Nadav Yaron, the Audi in the pole position there in the number 22, to see how exactly Nadav will take that corner down and be able to handle all of that. A little bit of weaving here going back and forth for these drivers, trying to get a little bit of temperature into those tires, and I think also going to be important to be able to get a little bit of temperature into the brakes as once they bring their way up through the Dunlop curve and down into the Dunlop chicanes, it's a pretty hefty braking zone, so you really want to make sure those brakes are up to temperature. And brake temperature overall going to be something that drivers are going to have to watch out for here today, as there are long stretches of straightaway, obviously down the long Mulsanne, where those brakes will cool a little bit, and you've got to maybe do a little bit of brake knocking to make sure that those brakes stay up to temperature and that they're not going to bite when you get down into the braking zone to the first or second chicanes down the Mulsanne. Drivers working their way on through, and unless my eyes deceive me, we've got a little bit of a change. That's a Ford in the field.
Yeah,
that is a Ford in the field.
I was noticing that as well. That's something that you just don't ever see. We haven't seen it all season long. Who is it there that's brought out the Ford for us? It's literally a car you never, ever see, but it sometimes comes out in these wacky combinations where the balance of performance kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, it certainly does, and it looks like Ofra Mazouz going to be the driver that is taking that number 422 Ford around here. We'll have to see how that thing does. It's normally known as being pretty slippery in a straight line, so I've got to think that's going to be a big help for him here today down the long Mulsanne straight. But that is going to be found out here in just a little bit of time as Nadav Yaron brings the field down. Looks like, Dane, they're going to back things up and go 2x2 down into those final Ford chicanes. Now here they come, and immediately off the jump, Nadav Yaron gets a great jump on the rest of the field as there goes the green. We are racing here at Le Mans. Diving down now into the Dunlop curve, trying to take all of it there. A little bit of side-by-side between Ram Sassoni and Arnaud Levi farther back in the field. It looks like Sassoni's going to be able to hold on to that second-place position, bumping his way by his fellow BMW driver here early on as they work their way through the Dunlop chicane and down into the S's before they get to Touch Rouge.
Yep, here through the Forest S's, obviously very tricky, especially on cold tires, which obviously you have at the beginning of the race, up and through the left and then the right. Touch Rouge now, most important corner on the circuit. Your exit here determines your speed down in towards the first Mulsanne chicane, and there are so many different ways that you can get a slowdown penalty off of that corner.
Yeah, there certainly are. Running too close to the inside, running too close to the outside. You name it, you can pick up a slowdown penalty going through that, but it looks like the majority of the field here able to avoid that penalty. We ride on board right now with Arnaud Levi as he tries to take a little bit of a look. That's Ram Sassoni up in front of him in the BMW taking a look to the inside of the Audi. That's not going to play itself out, but we've got a very, very close run here up for the top three. Yaron leading Sassoni and Levi as they power their way through the first chicane and start to bring their way onto the field. And again, building a little bit of a gap here as they go. Gabay dropping a little bit of time. He's about 2 seconds back.
Yep, that he is, and you need to start catching as soon as possible. This is what we might see a little bit of, and I said it's a bit like pack racing. You'll see this in stock cars. Well, they will start bump drafting around here, and it is very awkward in the GT3 cars. You can do it. It's absolutely possible. You can do it very effectively. But if you get it slightly wrong, then there's going to be questions that needs to be answered.
Yeah, there certainly are, and it's not just GT3s that bump draft around here. I have seen everything to it. Whoa, 3 wide! That's Tal Stern, Mark Zubarev, and Yossi Gabay trying to fight into the braking zone down into the Mulsanne hairpin. Tal Stern going to be the one to take advantage over everything. He's going to gain 2 positions. Zubarev is going to hold station, and what was that, Dane?
Aidan Scher's just gone straight on. I think just messed up the braking zone ever so slightly. The cold tires probably coming into play as well there, but just went straight on. Gathered it back up again, didn't touch the wall, got back onto the circuit, just lost a couple positions, and unfortunately lost the back of the train. So now our train is only kind of 8 cars.
Up at the front of the field here, Nadav Yaron having to defend a little bit from Rantasoni as they came down through the kink into Indianapolis. They're going to be single file here between Yaron, Tassoni, and Levi as they try to sort themselves out. Now down into the flat right-hander of Arnage. You've got to watch out for that corner exit there. That barrier always seeming to want to reach out and grab you. The second pack here, led by Tal Stern, then Mark Zubarev with Yossi Gabay behind. Benny Sorek there in the Ferrari. The next one in line as we're really having three distinct breakaways here at this point. Now down into the Porsche curbs. This is where you really have to worry about the aero wash coming off the cars in front of you. You've got to back up a little bit if you're trailing close behind.
Yep, and one thing that this circuit is known for, you need to run low wing. You need to run low downforce to make it around this circuit at any respectable lap time because you've got a ton of straight line speed that you need. And so when you do that, and then you get some aero wash from the drivers in front of you, and then you try and go through the high-speed Porsche curves, that car is anything but stable, and it is very tricky to keep it going in a straight line while sending it on the limit.
Very much indeed. A little bit far behind there. It looks like Zubarev under pressure there from Yossi Gabay coming down into the Ford chicanes. That's actually going to compromise Mark Zubarev's line going down into the second part of the Ford chicanes. He's going to be able to gather it back up underneath him, but Gabay continuing to put pressure behind them. Benny Sorek trying to see what he is able to do on... That's a slowdown penalty for Benny Sorek as he got it wrong through the Ford chicanes. That's going to allow Yossi Gabay to be able to, or Ben Yosef rather, to be able to get up and on by.
Yep, indeed. Slowdown's a big talking point at this circuit. There are so many of them. You've got turns 1 and 2, turn 3, let's see, turn 6, turn 7, Tetra Rouge. You've got the chicanes. All have got slowdown penalties associated with them as well. If you cut too much of Mulsanne corner, you get a slowdown penalty. Indianapolis and the exit, there's none. And then you've got, obviously, the 4 chicanes at the end of the circuit as well. There's a lot of slowdowns here. And there's another one.
And that is Sure, I believe, that picked one up coming down through the S's. And that means he's going to find himself a little bit farther down in the order. Drawer Last is going to be able to get a nice little tow off the back of that 10th placed BMW. He's going to be able to pull himself up along, move Drawer Last up into 10th place, move Sure down into 11th. But Shuren's going to be able to hold on behind here, get a little bit of the tow off from Azus in the Ferrari, starting to break away. Speaking of breaking away, look at that. Nadav Yaron opening up a nearly 1.3 second gap over Rantasoni and Tal Stern. The Audi running away here at this point.
Yeah, that's a massive advantage that he's got there, and most importantly, out of drafting range immediately. And that is so important for Yaron if he wants to take the victory in this race. That Audi looking very speedy indeed. Sione, well, almost 5 seconds back now at this point, going through the second of the chicanes on the Mulsanne straight through the kink here as well, up and over the crest and looking now towards Mulsanne corner. But yeah, Sione's got a lot of work to do. Has to work together with Tal Stern. These two need to try and figure something out if they want to catch back up to Yaron, because at this point, Yaron looks set for, as long as they keep it on track, a nice little victory in about 35 minutes time.
Yeah, he certainly could, but I'll tell you what, Mark Zubarev has got his hands full with Yossi Gabay behind him as they work their way through the Mulsanne hairpin, but it did look like there that Gabay got it wrong a little bit. That's going to open up the door here to Arnon Levi, and that's a slowdown penalty to the Mercedes there of Tal Stern. Stern dropping down through the order. Drama here on lap 2.
Yep, absolutely, and this is the longest flat-out section on the circuit. Obviously, with the chicanes now on the Mulsanne straight, that's not the longest part. This is, and that is why you see this right-hander and then to the left at Indianapolis are going to be your biggest real overtaking opportunity. And it seems counterintuitive, but you definitely can make stuff happen there, especially if you manage to sort of spook your opponents out a little bit. Not too much. You don't want them wrecking the car and possibly into you. Just enough so that they back out and sort of cede the position to you. You can definitely do a lot in those couple of corners. It's tricky, it's definitely a bit sketchy, but it's a very common overtaking opportunity at this circuit.
Yeah, it certainly is. You just have to have a lot of tenacity to be able to make that work as we follow here. Yuta Ben Yosef trying to hold on to the back. Is that Zubarev? Zubarev off in front. The McLaren driver trying to gather it up back underneath him. He's barely going to be able to get that car pointed the right way, and then Ben Yosef tries to take a look down into the inside. That's going to force Zubarev off into the grass. There's contact between the two. Zubarev spins, jumping on the brakes there is Tal Stern. I think he avoided any contact, but talk about a bad run for Mark Zubarev.
Can someone tell me how Tal Stern avoided him? I need to see a replay on board with Tal Stern, because there's no possible way he's avoided him there. That was insane.
That may be the avoidance of the year. The number 11 Mercedes driver. Let's watch it here. There's the contact in front. Zubarev just slams on the binders. Did he completely... he completely avoided contact. How did Tal Stern do that? Give the cat-like reflexes awards to the number 11.
Zubarev down into the pit lane there. I'm going to gather that's probably for a fast repair.
Yes, I do believe they get one fast repair here in this extended race. And speaking of that, we are inching our way towards the 1/4 mark down here. Good little battle starting to develop itself for third place, the final step on the podium. This is between our own Levi and Yossi Gabe. Levi there in the BMW, Gabe in the Audi, trailing behind, trying to catch up here at this point. Crucially, going to be within about that 1 second mark that we talked about. That's where you want to be. If you are within a second of the driver in front of you, you're going to get exactly what you see on your screen, a big helping of the toe, and that's really going to allow these drivers to be able to pull in close behind.
Yep, that it definitely will, and deep into the braking zone as well. Goodbye, looking for that podium position, obviously back in the bright green racing machine that we always love to see him in. First couple of rounds, I believe he was in a black car, and it just didn't feel right.
No, it certainly didn't. That bright green has really become Gabe's calling card here. Looks like he's got a good run out of the first Mulsanne chicane. Let's see if he's going to go for the overtake here. If we're going to see a little bit of a lift, potentially no. It's going to be option 3. That's the bump draft that you talked about earlier, Dane.
Yep, it is, and you'll notice that they run down the middle of the track in these GT cars, and there is a weird story behind that. Basically, the track is slightly banked. It's slightly... banked, so the middle of the track is crested slightly, and that's just for drainage purposes. The water will run off the track onto either side, and that's just for the road, because obviously these are public streets for 99% of the year. However, these cars, they've got a minimum ride height, but they want to run them as low to the ground as possible. We see this in almost every motorsport. They want to run them as low as possible. So they drive over the crest in the middle, because it makes the car artificially lower, and it helps them out with a bit of straight line speed. And it's a very small advantage, but you'll see them immediately back down to the middle of the road, and that's why.
There you go, learning a few things about physics and race car engineering. It's all the services we provide here on Apex Racing TV, and that is a very good mark there for these drivers. But Gabe not exactly keeping to that middle of the track here as he tries to poke his way this way and that on Arnon Levi, down into the sweeper before Indianapolis, onto the braking zones, down into the left-hander, trying to keep everything together. Both drivers running a little bit wide there on corner exit, kicking up a little bit of dirt, but they're going to keep it together. They're going to have to watch out for that. You can't be running too far off that track, as I've seen many a driver do that, catch a little bit of that gravel, find themselves on the outside. They've got about a 5-second advantage. Let's call it about 6 seconds, actually, back to Tal Stern. Looks like here that coming out of Arnage, Gabe's lost a little bit of time. Let's focus farther back down in the field. This is Aiden Schur holding off an attack here from the Ford GT of Offer Mazouz. And Dror Last holding on to the back as well. Nice little 3-car battle back down for 7th place.
Yep, we always like to see these little trains here, and I always love to see the Ford. It's a very funny-looking car from the rear. It's got all sorts of shenanigans going on back there. Now taking a wide entry, trying to get out of the aero wash, and that's what happens if you don't do that successfully. They're still battling up further ahead. Dror Last has done an exceptionally good job to hold on to that car.
That was a full 4-wheel drift there from Dror Last. The fact that he was able to recover that, absolutely remarkable. Some very, very good reflexes behind the wheel of that number 55 machine. I saw a little bit of a wiggle there out of Schur, as here comes a little bit of a look for Offer Mazouz. Is he going to try something down into the Ford chicanes? No, but he is going to try to push iRacing offline a little bit. Sure, having to take a, frankly, defensive line down into the final 4 chicane. That's not going to hurt him too much. Mazouz now able to get on the loud pedal as they'll cross over the stripe. 12.5 minutes down here in this race from the Circuit de la Sarthe as they now work their way through the Dunlop curve. This is the closest battle that we have out on track right now.
Yep, and back through Dunlop they will go. If you ever forget what the name of turns 1 and 2 is called, there's your reminder. That is a functioning bridge. I didn't know that until I actually got to the circuit last year. It's a functioning bridge. It's massive, and it blocks out all cell signal.
Oh, is that so for Mazouz and iRacing getting it wrong. Both drivers spinning in sympathy, and Dror Last says, thank you very much. I will take that position away from you as we watch over Mazouz having to do about a 13-point turn to be able to get himself turned back around. Let's jump back to check out the replay here brought to you by SDK Gaming. Figure out exactly what happened to iRacing coming down through the S's. Does he run just a little bit wide? Yeah, picks up a little bit of grass, picks up a little bit of curb, touches that outside line, and I think the 422 just spun around in sympathy.
I think he did exactly the same thing. Got on the grass. He was just carried slightly too much speed. Unfortunately, well, fortunately, I should say, Mazouz, he managed to get more onto the grass, if that makes sense. He was fully onto it, and so his car didn't just loop around immediately and spear into that inside wall. Instead, he sort of had a very slow looping spin, and that allowed him to keep it out of the wall and keep going again. His tires, however, are not going to be happy for a while. These two, are they battling? Yes, they are. No bump drafting happening here. Looks like Goodbye and Levi going back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah, and remember, it was Yossi Goodbye that made that bump draft on the last lap around. Doesn't look like our known Levi wanted to return that favor. Now, they've got about 6 seconds to try to make up to Rantasoni in front of them in that BMW. You can see him just working his way on the foreground of that shot there. Levi now just going to be tucking behind in the draft. As you said, the longest straight run here on the circuit. Coming down through the right-handed kink. Looks like he's not going to be trying to take a move here into Indianapolis. Probably just waiting for an opportune moment, but he gets it wrong. Maybe a little bit early on the throttle there. Spins it around. Contact with the outside wall.
Yep, it is a treacherous circuit, and that is what we're proving right here with these drivers and Tal Stern looking for that 4th position now as well. You can see the Mercedes just in the backdrop now gaining and within drafting range, that is for sure. So we'll see another what's happened here to Rantasoni through Mulsanne corner. Gets a little bit squirrely on entrance, and we're just going to run a bit deep there. And keeps it actually on the track, so decent job there to recover that. That could have gone very much worse.
Yeah, very, very much could have. Our known Levi here, after making a little bit of that contact with the outside wall, he's going to be able to bring the car back on and get going here through the Porsche curves. Tal Stern, though, recognizes a little bit of blood in the water, as you said. He's going to be trying to close down. He's got the gap down to about 1.15 seconds. He's going to be getting a nice little hint of that slipstream here as he works his way down through the 4 chicanes. Not going to be getting it here, but once the time they get to the Mulsanne, that should certainly come into play, and we should see that car move its way forward.
Back over the line once again. And up the hill. This is a hill, right? It doesn't look that bad from here. This is a hill. Trying to walk up that, it's tough. It is very tough. I was about dead by the time I got up there. But it's a massive hill, and it does help your braking a little bit. You can brake a little bit later than you might think, because gravity helps you out ever so slightly.
Yeah, one of the weird things about this circuit is we really don't think of it as having all that much elevation change, but it surely does. And as you said there, certainly through this first sector alone, there's quite a bit of undulation on this circuit. Going to give a little bit of love here to the 6th place machine of Benny Sorek, the lone Ferrari in the field in that number 73, running in an island unto himself right now. He's got about 8 seconds up the road to Tal Stern in that Mercedes that we focused on not too long ago. Drawer last is going to be about 20 seconds behind him. So this, at this point, really going to be, I think, just a hot lap session here for Benny Sorek, and hope to have a few drivers maybe make a mistake or two in front of him that's going to be able to bring him on closer. Right now, it doesn't look like he's going to have any buddies to be running with.
Yeah, just got to keep running consistent laps and try and make the most of things here. Obviously, the drivers do get a lot of bonus points as well. There's a lot of different ways that you can get bonus points in this series. So there's still plenty on offer for Benny here in the number 73. And trying to do that Ferrari proud. A couple of 3 Audis even. Quite a lot of BMWs that we've seen throughout most of the season. Ferrari, not as popular of a car.
No, not as popular. And the 488 model here, obviously now about to be officially called outdated, as the 296 has taken to the track at Daytona, about to take the track in Sebring, and we expect that model to be coming up through the fields here. And I've heard some rumors that we may be getting it on iRacing, so we'll have to see just how long that takes to be able to get the new GT3 Ferrari into the field. But it's going to be a sad goodbye. I always have loved this 488. It's a very beautiful looking car, whether it's on the sim or in person, and always known as sort of a good all-arounder, a good beginner's car, as it were. It's certainly one of my favorite GT3s to run in this entire fleet of GT3s that we have available on iRacing.
Well, there's a reason it's used in the D-Class series, isn't there? Yeah, good old Ferrari challenge. But were there any of those new Ferrari GT3s at St. Pete?
Unfortunately, no. We did not have a Ferrari in the field. Did have the brand new BMW M4 GT4 that was very excited to be able to take a look at, and going to be running there. But the real, I think, new time where we're going to see a bunch of those news cars out for GT America and for the rest of those series will be in Sonoma at the end of the month when SRO America decides to make their trek up there.
Look at that gap out in front. 8 seconds. It's huge.
Absolutely remarkable here for Nadav Yaron. He's coming down into pit lane here, as we do believe that there may be a pit stop that needs to be taken here, so that's going to change up a little bit of strategy. Rantasoni also coming down to make his mandatory pit stop. Now the question's going to be, I think, Dane, with these drivers, is tires. How long are they going to be stationary in the box? Are they going to be able to take tires? Obviously, one of the talking points that has come forth over the last couple of builds on iRacing is the new change to GT3 tire models, that you are able to simultaneously take tires and fuel. I've got to think with a 40-minute race, you're not going to have to worry about that much tire degradation, but let's see if anybody decides to roll the dice.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting strategy call for the drivers. Also, very often drivers will just forget and accidentally take tires or accidentally not take tires when they should take tires. There's a lot of things that go into things. A couple shared pit stalls here, which definitely going to be a little bit confusing for the drivers as they all try and make their way out of things. But nobody's taking tires just yet. Everybody's sort of minding their own business. Fuel may be a concern. There we go. There's some tires. They're going on to Benny Sorek's car.
Yeah, going on to the Ferrari there, so clearly trying to gain an advantage. I like that call from Benny. Come in, get some fresh tires. We talked about that big gap in front, big gap behind. He's clearly got the room to be able to take those tires and not have to worry about an attack from behind, so why not jump up onto the jacks, get a fresh set of boots, and he's going to be out and on his way. So going to be able to do that. Yeah, Stern is slow in pit lane. That's a very long stop for him.
Yeah, still there. Still there. Not moving.
I'm looking to see here if I see a black flag. I do. That is a penalty being served to Tal Stern. That's got to be speeding into pit lane.
Yeah, it's got to be. We would have noticed if it was a cut track penalty. Would have probably have to come in earlier as well. So Tal Stern, that is very unfortunate for Stern. They just noticed, like, looking at the time, I was thinking, He's been there for a while now. Like, everybody else has come and gone, and he's just kind of still sat there. So, yep, Mercedes driver down to the end of the field, and, well, now going to have to try and catch back up to the driver on our screens now, Zubrev in 8th position in that McLaren, who's got about a 3-second gap to the car in front, trying to make some things happen here.
Yeah, trying to make a little things happen. Tal Stern going to have to try to gain back. Let's call it about 8 seconds here, 8-9 seconds. That's going to be a pretty tall order, but I will say the flip of that here is that Zubrev and Stern both out of position, so they are a little bit faster than some of the cars around them. We'll have to see. Alfa Mazus going to be the last driver here running in that Ford GT. He's going to bring the car on to the Mulsanne straight right now in that number 422. Try to see if he's able to pick up a little bit of running here. He's got about 10 seconds to try to gain on the back of Tal Stern. Some pretty hefty gaps here in the field as they run. But again, I've got to think in the second half of this race, it's going to be about instant mitigation. Incident mitigation, that is going to be the two words that are going to be absolutely crucial around here. We've seen a lot of drivers getting things wrong in the first half of this race. And I think we could be in store for a few more little mistakes here and there if they're not careful.
Well, we've already seen a fair share of mistakes, and in this part of the circuit especially, now that you've got more fuel on the car and you've still got those old tires, it becomes much more tricky. Your braking points will have to be extended ever so slightly. You won't be able to carry as much speed through the corners. The car is just going to feel overall a little bit more sluggish. But it's going to get a bit more sketchy on those older tires as well, because they'll continue to wear out as the last 15 minutes or so of this race progress.
Yeah, I certainly will. And as we talked about, tire wear going to be a big concern. We focus, though, on your leader right now, Nadav Yaron, who holds about a 6-second advantage over Rantasoni in that number 20 BMW. As here comes Yaron flicking his way through the Porsche curves. There is Rantasoni a little bit farther back down in that number 20, trying to see what he is able to get to do. We'll try to keep an eye on that gap, see if he's able to bring that down a little bit. I think, though, of a little bit more pressing concern here could be the fact that, well, no, I read that wrong. Sony's got about a 10-second gap to Yossi Gabe behind him, so he's really just got to focus on the road up ahead of him and keep pushing forward.
And push he is. You can see the gap just on the bottom of the screen there. The sector times looks like Yaron is still extending that gap quite significantly.
Yeah, Nadav not letting up here at all in that Audi, and we've really seen that Audi in the most recent balance of performance come alive a little bit on these high-speed circuits. In the official Daytona 24-hour, it was obviously a couple of Audis that were able to take the victory for our very own Apex Racing team, and they were able to use the bump draft very effectively to do a great job. Not always the car that you think of being fastest in the straight line, but clearly results here today and the results in Daytona come into play that Audi has clearly got some good performance.
Yep, it definitely does, no wonder. As we reach towards the end of the season, what cars we're going to use next? Because they do like to change it up a bit in the iRacing Israel League. Every season we seem to have different cars, so had a couple of GTs in a row now, I think. So maybe something else is in order.
Maybe it is, and well, that's a perfect transition to talk about some of the news that we've been given here about what's coming to the iRacing service, including the Renault Clio for the Clio Cup. That's going to be potentially something that we could see put in. Also very excited to see a new track coming in the form of Jerez. That's going to be a good one as well. So hopefully both of those may be making their way into the iRacing Israel League for next season. We are not sure. That's idle speculation on our part, but a very, very exciting update coming here to iRacing in, well, just about a week's time.
Yeah, you got the free content as well that's being dropped as well, the Ray Race Cars Formula 1600, Formula Ford if you're in the UK or Europe, so that that could make an appearance as well. That could be really good. Go sort of back towards the series roots as well. Obviously, season 1, that 1 week long, one race every single day sort of thing that happened, the kind of thing that you see quite often. Back in early 2020, when the world completely shut down, Skip Barbers was the first cars used by the iRacing Israel League. Back when Amir Meshulam first decided he was going to launch this series, and it's just grown exponentially since then. So many drivers involved in it now.
Yeah, so many drivers involved, and we love this this series to be able to cover as we watch one of your organizers there, Tal Stern, working his way down through. A little bit of damage you could see on the right-hand side of that car, but it doesn't look like it's affecting performance. And Stern has been able to make up some time here on the back of Mark Zubarev. We talked about that gap a little bit earlier. It's now down to about 4 seconds. So Tal Stern really putting in the time here to close down on the back of that McLaren, starting to bring it down a little bit more. Gaps really across the entire field starting to diminish here in about the final, let's call it 12 minutes to go here in this race. And I think this one could be a battle that we see fire off before that checkered flag flies.
Well, you're absolutely right, because I think this is sort of tire degradation at this point. I feel like the drivers who have started to build up these big gaps throughout the race so far have been using their tires quite a bit more, and maybe now they're starting to drop off a little bit, and drivers behind are starting to catch up a little bit. And yeah, we're still 12 minutes until the end of this race, obviously plus a lap, more or less, because very often at Le Mans with a 4-minute or so lap time, you've got a long time once the clock ticks to 0 before we actually get to the checkered flag. So yeah, we could definitely still have some of these drivers catch right back up in front. And also, you've got to remember, they only have to catch up to about 2 seconds. About 2 seconds behind, you get into the draft. Within a lap, you're already there. So not a whole lot of time needs to be gained by a couple of these drivers. I'm looking at Tal Stern in P9, only 4 seconds behind Zubarev. Zubarev himself only 5.5 seconds behind last. So could be a couple interesting things here. Ben Yosef into the pit lane. Have we seen Ben Yosef into the pit lane yet today?
I don't believe so, or maybe we have already. Yeah, this is going to be his second pit stop, so clearly something having a problem there for the number 10 machine, as he's going to bring it down into the pits here. I wonder if he maybe miscalculated the fuel, potentially. That's something that can happen here in these longer races. He's going to come down into the pits here, take a stop. Well, missed his pit box there. That's going to be a little bit frustrating there for him. Looks like that's relatively standard service, I've got to think, as Zubarev also coming down into the pits here as well.
Possibly a penalty? That doesn't look like a penalty for Ben Yosef. That was too quick to be a penalty. So I think Ben Yosef, it may well have just been some fuel. But Zubarev here taking some tires as well. What is going on?
I'm not entirely sure. I was told that we would only have one pit stop here. That's what we assumed. Zubarev is going to get back on his way. And let's remember, Zubarev was in a little bit of a battle there with Tal Stern, so it's not like he had things to throw away here. He's now going to find himself at the very back of the field. But we do have a little bit of a battle to follow in on, as Ben Yosef is going to find himself under a little bit of an attack here from Offer Mazouz. As here they go down onto the Mulsanne, and it looks like Mazouz is going to be within range to be able to pick up a good helping of that draft.
Yep, that he is, and that Ford, as we said earlier, it does seem to have some good straight line speed. It also has one of the most interesting dashboards of all of the GT3 cars. I'm not sure if we can get an onboard shot through down this Mulsanne straight. There we go. Old school.
Very, very old school. Not a lot of those digital LCD screens. It's a lot of switches and knobs, as I do love the way that car looks. I'm not going to lie. It just looks mean. It looks aggressive, and I love the interior.
It definitely is very interesting to look at, and everything's so clearly labeled as well. Even from here, we can read what all the buttons do. You go into some of the other cars, no chance.
Yeah, no chance at all. But here they go as they try to be able to get their way around. Looks like Mazuz has lost a little bit of time. That's going to slow him down a little bit more as he's not going to be able to get the best run that he would like. Here coming down into the Mulsanne hairpin. The gap's going to be holding at about 2.5 seconds. The 422 having a lot of ground to try to make up here at this point. Gap expanding a little bit more up to 2.6 and almost 2.7 seconds. It looks like that Ford losing out a little bit through the twisty bits. He's going to have to try to gain everything back up here on the straightaways, but it just looks like he didn't get the best run out of Mulsanne, and he's going to suffer for it.
That he is. It's a pretty big gap, and because these straight sections are so long, you can just see the driver in front getting further and further away, and it's a little bit demoralizing at times, but still a bit of time left for Mazuz to catch up, taking all of the curb on the inside of the kink before Indianapolis, taking a good chunk of it through Indianapolis as well. And now we'll see in towards Arnage, one of the most difficult corners on the circuit, slowest part of the circuit as well, would you believe? And it's very dusty. It's one of the reasons why that braking zone is so difficult, is because you have to slow the car down slower than any other part of the circuit. Your downforce is completely gone, so you have to slow down even more because you don't really have much grip there. And then it's so dusty because it's not used on a regular basis like most of the rest of the track is. You've got all of the first sector of Le Mans is used as the Bugatti circuit, which is used fairly frequently. Then you've got the public roads, which obviously are used all the time. But that section specifically is bypassed by the public roads. They have a little roundabout next to the actual corner, so they don't use that part of the track ever, except for during the 24-hour race. So it's very, very dusty there.
Yeah, very dusty, and that's just kind of one of those things that drivers have to keep in mind as they pilot around this circuit. It's really and truly such a difficult circuit to learn, not only because it is so long, because there are so many of those little intricacies that you've got to try to learn about it. Well, one driver, though, that has been able to master all of those intricacies, that is Nadav Yaron, who is now up to a 9-second advantage up at the front of the field. Yaron has just looked absolutely in a field unto himself here today. You can see on that last lap alone, gaining 2 seconds over Rantasoni. This Audi just looking unbeatable out on circuit as he pilots his way down the Mulsanne right now, bringing his way down into that final hairpin before it leads on to the run into Indianapolis here.
And down the long second part of the straight, you can see Sione in the background. Just about 9 seconds is that gap now. That BMW driver slowly makes his way towards the camera and then whiz past at a rate of knots underneath the Toyota boards here. These boards are awesome, and all of these barriers, they leave them up all year round. They're always there. They stay there permanently. All the brake boards, everything. The Marshall's lights where they have the flag posts and everything, that all completely stays there. So you can drive around this part of the circuit all year round, and it feels like you're driving in the race. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's certainly a bucket list thing for me to be able to work my way around this circuit in some kind of a car at some point. I know, Dane, you've been able to drive a little bit on the public roads here, and I'm very envious that you've been able to make it out to Le Mans.
It was awesome. Unfortunately, the literal day that I went to book my tickets for this year, they sold out. They never sell out. It's not a thing that happens. But this year, with the hype that's around the race, with obviously, you know, all of the new hypercar manufacturers, the LMDH cars coming across as well. We've got 16 cars in the top class of Le Mans for the first time in, I don't know, probably 5, 6, 7 years. So yeah, definitely a lot of hype around this year's race. I can't wait for the 24 hours. It's going to be amazing, but unfortunately I'll be watching it from my sofa. However, yeah, going there last year was an experience that it will always stay with me, and being able to drive on parts of the circuit and walk along the rest of it as well, because during the days they're not driving, you can just walk around the entire circuit. Even the closed off to the cars sections, this spot here, you can walk along it. It's real experience. You see a lot that you will never see from the TV cams.
Yeah, it's certainly a bucket list thing for me, I can tell you that, as we watch Rantasoni crossing over the stripe there. About 3.5 minutes left to go on the clock. I think that should be 2 laps to go here for the leaders, if my math is correct, but never trust a commentator's math. We take a look farther back down in the field. Our own Levi currently running in 4th place right now, has about a 6-second gap up to the podium in the form of Yossi Gabe. Is going to be holding off a little bit closer behind, excuse me, that is a 18-second gap up to Yossi Gabe. Benny Sorek in that Ferrari that we've been following, about 21 seconds behind him. So like a lot of these other drivers in the field, Levi really just running a race unto himself. And we've talked about it. Sometimes that is a challenge in and of itself around this Circuit de la Sarthe. Is just hot lapping here is challenging enough, and driving side by side with another car can just add another big problem. As our director here, Luis Araya, has reminded us as well, it is the 100th year celebration of Le Mans this year, the 100 years since the first one, not the 100th running. So that is just clearly adding to the hype here across the entire standing.
Yeah, it certainly is. And one of the things that caught me by surprise, and something that I really wasn't expecting when I was there, is that everything inside of iRacing is actually there. The KFC that's inside, like, just after Tetra Rouge, it's there. It's a KFC, and I was trying to figure out where I'm going to eat, and then I remembered, hang on, there's a KFC there. And I went there, and it is there. And it's just hilarious to drive around a place that you've driven around on The Sims so much, and it is identical. And it's just a really funny thing.
I always certainly love that when they put in some new scans, and I can tell you one of the great things about iRacing is that recognition of not only what is on the circuit itself and being able to sort of learn what is going on the circuit, but also the ability to check out those little things here and there. I can tell you one of my home tracks where I am, Long Beach, all of those little shops and things around there, they certainly do exist in real life. And so always fun to be able to check all of that out, and it's just a testament to the good and incredible modeling that iRacing does. Here is Benny Sorek, though. We talked about him not too long ago. He works his way down through the second chicane on the Mulsanne in that Ferrari, now working his way towards the little kink here. Not nearly as fearsome as it used to be when Mulsanne was just a straight line, but still up at high speed here, flicking his way up into 6th gear as he gets ready for the braking zone, down into the Mulsanne hairpin. Such a tricky braking zone to get right, as you've got to be putting a little bit of steering lock into the car as you bring it down and get onto the binders.
Yep, and making his way through the final few corners now. This will be the last lap for Nadav Yaron, I believe, as coming through the Corvette curves and through karting as well. Dominant race from the number 22 Audi.
Absolutely dominant, as you are right, and that's why you never trust a commentator's math, as we are coming to the checkered flag here, as it is officially hit 40 minutes in this race, and Nadav Yaron brings the car down through the final chicanes that constitute the 4 chicanes, down through the last corner, comes across the line, and it is Nadav Yaron by a whopping 8 seconds to take victory up at the front of the field. Rantasoni in the BMW, the number 20, will cross over the line to take 2. A very commanding performance here from both drivers. A very impressive run. Yossi Gabe going to hold on to P3 in the Audi as well. He will cross over the stripe and take out the podium, and that does mean that Rantasoni will be our champion here for the season.
Yep, and a special livery, I believe, to celebrate that fact as well for the BMW driver. A very good performance from himself as well. Not too many mistakes. I saw a couple times he got a bit deep into Mulsanne corner, but other than that, very clean race from that BMW driver as well. A very consistent season too, and very eager to share his thoughts with us as well. He's already waiting to have a chat with us, and we've only had 4 cars cross the line.
We gotta wait for a few more to come across here, Rand, but we will get to him in just a few seconds' time as we watch right now Benny Sorek in 5th place. Gonna cross over the line in that Ferrari. A little bit of a close run. Oh, Tal Stern throws it all the way at the last moment as there goes Dror last, and now Tal Stern will cross over the line. That will be 6th and 7th. We have to wait a little bit here for Yuta Ben Yosef to come across the line as he is just now exiting out of the Porsche curves down through that last couple of corners, and now he brings his way into the Ford chicanes.
Probably one of the trickiest chicanes that you'll ever have to face as a driver. It's left, right again. The entire time you're still slowing down, so you have to do that whilst braking, and then a bit of power in the middle of it as well, because you can afford to get a little bit of power in there in the middle just to save a slight bit of time. You got high curves to deal with. It's tough. Ooh.
And this looks like a problem here for Mark Zubarev. That car
Out
is
of
dead
fuel.
stick. Yeah, he is out of fuel. Zubarev's going to have to try to coast this to the
more
finish
fuel.
line. He did. He came in twice. That
Oh,
must have been a
no.
problem there.
Oh, it's heartbreak for Zubarev, but it is a slight downhill. A very slight downhill, but it is a slight downhill. Oh, I don't think he's going to make it. You'll have to cut the chicanes, right? You have to expect him to cut the second part of the chicane onto the tarmac, right? You've got to go straight here, Mark. You've got to go straight. I don't think he's making it.
I don't think he is either. Let's see if he does decide to try to cut it here.
No,
he's going to take it the correct way. Doesn't get up onto the curbs. Come on, Mark. Come on. He is so close here to making it. Is he going to be able to limp across the start-finish line? He's only got a couple of yards to go here at this point, as Zubarev in 10th place is going to slowly but surely, I think he can cross over the start-finish line, and that will be Mark Zubarev in 10th place. I got to give credit. That's impressive. That is very impressive from Zubarev.
I'm 100% cutting the chicane at that point. Like, no, I'm not going around the chicane and driving more than I have to. Yeah, I'll get a slowdown, but it will serve itself by the time I get to the line. Like, come on, he really played a risky game there.
He certainly did. As there you can see your results on the screen. Yaron from Tassoni, from Gabay, our own Levi and Benny Sorek rounding out your top 5. Then it was Dror last, Tal Stern, Yuta Ben Yosef, Offer Mazuz, and Mark Zubarev with the coast of the race to come home in P10. Aiden Shear was down 7 laps in 11th place. Well, as previewed, we do have our reigning champion here, Rand Tassoni, able to come up into the booth with us. And Rand, you are the champion across the season. That has got to feel good.
Yeah, it sure does. You know, I wanted to get the first place also here at the end of the season, but I made a couple mistakes a couple of times into the Molson straight, into the Molson corner. I think if I wouldn't have gone so deep, I could have kept the slipstream from Nadav in front, and maybe I would have a chance at the top of the podium in this race also. But what can I say? Champion of the league also feels good, so I'm not complaining.
I certainly wouldn't be complaining as well. As we look ahead to next season, obviously not entirely sure what's going to be running out on the track, but do you think that's going to be in time for a little title defense, or how do you think next season will go?
Well, we'll have to wait and to see what is the chosen car and in the league. So based on that, you know, I'm more of an a single seater. I like downforce. I had a real tough time converting into the GT cars. So I'm really hoping that we will see some kind of car with downforce, maybe LMDH, or I don't know. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
We will have to wait and see as well. But Rand, as for today, as for the championship, you were able to take the season-long championship. Who makes this possible? Who do you want to thank?
So yeah, first of all, I want to thank Tal for managing and organizing this league, all the races that are taking part, And a special thanks for you guys, for Dane and DJ Clark. Thank you very much, guys, for broadcasting. It was a pleasure.
It is always our pleasure, Ran, and we are more than happy to do it. That was Ran Tassoni, your victor across the entire season. A great run there for him. And Dane, it looks like we've got time for one more interview. I believe you've been able to catch up with Yossi Gabe.
Yep, absolutely. The driver back into his Audi in the bright green racing machine. Yossi, welcome back once again. You spent a lot of time up here with us this season. A very, very successful season for yourself in these GT3 cars. It really seemed to suit your driving style nicely, and a very nice championship position there as well for the end of the season. But talk to us about Le Mans. Very tricky circuit. A lot of the drivers really struggling out there.
Yeah. First of all, thank you guys. Yeah, the Audi is not very stable on especially on the high turns and the high chicanes. And the BMW was far more stable according to my tests. But I went with my green car and just took the third place, which I needed.
Yes, absolutely. You went with the green car probably just to please me, because you know how much it makes me happy to see you driving in the bright green car. It really does mean a lot to me. But yeah, Lamar, it's a massive long circuit. Obviously, we had a lot of drivers. You have the pit stops as well that you had to worry about. Did you sort of try and take any risks with the strategy? I know a couple drivers ran out of fuel. I think it was Mark Zubrev at the end there, ran out of fuel and then just about made it across the line. What was your strategy heading into things?
Yeah, actually, I fueled the fuel tank and the maximum possible until the tank was full according to the limits. And actually, I was pretty afraid that there will be an extra lap for the complete lap after the watch, but eventually it wasn't. So, or else I would have run out of fuel as well. So I ran carefully on the last lap to see what's going on. Should I need to pit again or not? I didn't know what's going on. It's very
yeah, obviously it's it definitely can be a bit tricky, especially whilst you're driving, to try and figure out exactly what's going on in the race, especially when the gaps were quite big as they were between a lot of the drivers. It definitely did look like it was a challenge out there. Talking about next season then, we always like to change the cars up in the iRacing Israel League. I don't think it's been announced what sort of cars we're driving next. What are you sort of hoping for?
I think the wins are going on to some kind of open wheeler. I'm not sure which one, but I think this is what it's going to be. And it's really happy to go back to the open wheelers. They're really fun cars as well.
That they are. Well, Yossi, thank you so much for joining us yet again for another season of the iRacing Israel League here on Apex Racing TV. Let us know who you'd like to thank before we let you
go. This time I will thank to my wife, actually, which is very supportive in this demanding hobby, and I thank her for that.
Well, thank you very much, Yossi. We will see you next season, hopefully, and that pretty much wraps everything off there. Yossi Gabai, of course, finishing in this race, and lovely P3 in the championship as well for him.
Indeed, a good run there for Yossi Gabe, and you sort of previewed it there for me, Dane. That's going to wrap up our coverage for today, and not only for today, but for the season for the iRacing Israel League. It's been a great season of GT3 racing action. We will hopefully be back next season with, well, you heard it there from Yossi, maybe a little bit of single-seater action with some of the new cars that are coming on into the league, but that is to be determined, and we will let you know as soon as we get information there about that. But as for today, on behalf of myself, DJ Clark, Dane Baird, who's joined me here in the commentary booth, as well as Luis Araya, it's been an absolute pleasure to bring you the racing action. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.